I hit my 34th birthday the same night my father locked my 7-year-old son in a freezing cellar during a massive blizzard. He was down there for 4 hours. My boy sat on that icy concrete in total darkness while the frost bit at his fingers, just waiting for someone to hear him. He was only 7, 45 pounds of a terrified kid, but my father shoved him down those wooden stairs like he was some kind of pest. It all started because of a lie my 9-year-old nephew made up. My parents didn't even hesitate to believe it. To them, questioning that boy meant admitting their golden child could do no wrong. Later, in the pediatric ward, my father looked at my shivering son and whispered something so cold it ended our relationship for good. He had no idea I'd already called the cops. Their perfect little world was over. Welcome to Family Echoes. This is where we talk about the stories that actually happen, the ones that break families apart, and the grit you need to stand up for your own. If you've been through something like this, leave a comment and follow us. I enlisted in the Navy when I was 19. I didn't care much about the ocean. I just knew it was the one door Arthur Vance couldn't lock from the outside. He wanted me married off early and living right down the street, keeping quiet while he called all the shots. My sister Clara did exactly that. She married her husband at 20, had my nephew Mason at 21, and stayed within a few blocks of the house. I remember my father at her wedding. He looked like a man who just won a war. I pursued NROTC, followed by intense aviation mechanics training, and eventually landed an engineering post in San Diego. The further I moved from my hometown, the more my father's disapproval weighed on me. By 26, I was a lieutenant overseeing maintenance crews on destroyers. A year later, I found out I was pregnant. My partner, Julian, an urban planner, vanished during my second trimester. No forwarding address, no explanation, just a note in a vacant townhome saying, "This is too overwhelming." I raised Leo on my own. His early years were a blur of military housing, mess halls, and whatever shore leave I could grab. My mom would text every now and then, and my dad called maybe twice a year, but the question was always the same. "When are you coming home, Elena?" I kept dodging them, focusing instead on Leo's questions about which base we were heading to next. I told him we'd conquer whatever the Navy threw at us. I was great at the logistics of maritime operations, but I didn't see the disaster coming when I wasn't around. When I got orders for a 10-month deployment to the Mediterranean, I only had 48 hours to figure out who would look after Leo. Any service member knows the drill. The paperwork, the temporary guardianship, the power of attorney. You hand your child over to someone you trust and fly across the ocean just praying you made the right call. Surprisingly, my parents didn't wait for me to ask. My mother called as soon as she heard about the deployment. She told me he belonged with family and that they'd take him in. I felt a huge wave of relief. Leo would have a big house and a good school, and he'd be with 2 people who had already raised kids. It seemed like a better plan than leaving him with another sailor. The decision felt solid at the time. I signed the temporary custody papers, officially making Arthur and Margaret Vance responsible for Leo. I even set up a monthly transfer of $1,500 into their joint account for groceries, tutoring, and clothes. My dad never mentioned the money, and I found out later he kept Clara completely in the dark about it too. Clara's son, Mason, basically lived at their house already. He had his own room upstairs, his own toothbrush by the sink, and more toys than he knew what to do with. But when Leo showed up with his duffel bag, my mom put him in the cramped sunroom on an old futon. While Mason had dinosaur wallpaper and glowing stars on his ceiling, Leo was sleeping on a lumpy cushion in a drafty room. I had no idea any of this was happening. Leo didn't say a word, and whenever I asked my mom how he was settling in, she'd just say, "He's thriving." That was her first lie. It definitely wasn't her last. The night before I shipped out, I sat on the edge of Leo's bed in our duplex. I pulled a laminated card from my pocket, his naval dependent ID. It had his picture on the front and my rank and emergency contact info on the back. I tucked it deep into the inner pocket of his favorite jacket. "Why is it in there?" he asked. "This is so any adult who finds you knows your mind," I told him. "No matter where I am or how far away I go, if you show someone this, they have to call me." He traced the plastic with his finger. "Even across the ocean?" He stopped for a second, then said something that should have stopped my heart right then and there. "What if Granddad gets mean again?" Again? I dropped the shirt I was folding and looked him in the eyes. "What do you mean, again, Leo?" He started tugging at a loose thread on his blanket. "Oh, nothing. He just yells really loud when he gets mad." "How does he shout?" I asked. "Like when Mason breaks stuff and Granddad thinks I did it," he said. "He yells, but Grandma just whispers for me to stay quiet." I knelt down beside him. "Did he scare you, Leo?" He shifted his weight, that specific way a 7-year-old moves when the answer is yes, but they don't have the words to explain why. I filed that look away in my mind. I told myself I'd watch things more closely from overseas. I promised myself I'd talk to my mother about it. I convinced myself that my father was just a difficult man, not a cruel one, and that Leo was safe. I was wrong, and by the time I realized which part I'd misjudged, my son was trapped in a cellar miles away from help. "I'll call you every Sunday," I told him, touching his cheek. "I promise." I kept that promise. My parents didn't keep theirs. Out in the Mediterranean, the world with nothing but salt, blue water, and an 8-hour time jump from California, my shifts ran 13 to 15 hours overseeing engine repairs for 3 different carrier groups. I timed our video chats for 7 a.m. my time, which was 11 p.m. back home, right when Leo should have been tucked into bed. But the calls never happened in his room. My mother always insisted on the den, claiming the signal was better there. By the 3rd week, I saw the real reason. Margaret was always there, hovering behind Leo, adjusting the tablet, smiling that fake smile. "How's school, honey?" I'd ask. "Okay." "What did you do today?" "Nothing." "Are you and Mason getting along?" Silence. Then a quiet, "I guess." Before I left, Riedel could talk for 30 minutes straight about a lizard he'd caught, a kid in class who played the violin, or a hawk he saw on the school chimney. Now he gave me one-word answers and stared past the camera like he was waiting for permission to leave. I tried asking my mother directly, "What's going on with Leo? He's acting different." Margaret just waved her hand like I was some annoying subordinate. She made it very clear she thought I was worrying over nothing. "He is just adapting," Margaret said. "Kids act like this when their world shifts. He needs patience, that's all." "Can I talk to him alone next time, without you there?" I asked. "The signal is better in the den, Elena. You know that." I didn't push. I really should have. 2 weeks later, something else changed. Leo stopped calling Mason by name. It used to be, "Mason and I built a tower," or "Mason showed me his comics." Now there was just silence when I brought him up. "Are you and Mason okay?" I asked. He looked away. "Yeah." "Really? Can I go now, Mom? Grandma says dinner's ready." I let him go. I shouldn't have done that either. The package arrived on a Thursday. A tan cardboard box taped up a bit messy with my mother's cursive on a label. Inside were 2 tins of Leo's favorite chocolate coins, a photo of him at a school assembly, and a creased piece of blue construction paper. I unfolded the drawing. Crayon figures. On the left side of the paper, there was a tall man, a woman with braided hair, and a shorter woman holding hands with a boy. They were all clustered together, smiling in bright greens, oranges, and purples. On the right side, there was a single, tiny silhouette with dark hair. He was frowning, standing all by himself, with no one reaching out to him. At the bottom, in shaky, childish handwriting, it said, "My family." I sat back on my cot and stared at it for a long time. My son had drawn himself outside of his own family. I called home immediately. My father picked up, sounding just as annoyed as he always did when I interrupted his evening news. "Is Leo there?" I asked. "He is downstairs. What do you want?" "I got a drawing from him. He drew the family, but he put himself off to the side, all alone." There was a silence, then a huff of breath. "Kids draw junk, Elena. Stop overthinking everything. He's fine. Your mother is looking after him." Maybe if you were actually here instead of playing mechanic halfway across the ocean, your boy wouldn't be making depressing sketches. He hung up. I pulled out a small ledger I kept in my chest, the kind with a stiff black cover and an elastic strap. I wrote down the date. I wrote down exactly what he said and what the drawing looked like. Then I folded that piece of paper and tucked it into the chest pocket of my fatigues. It stayed there for 4 months, pressed against my ribs, against my soul. I started digging into the details I had missed, tiny things, facts that finally started to connect. Leo's school used a digital dashboard for parents. I could track his attendance, teacher comments, and pickup times. I started checking it every night after my shift. Mason Vance, picked up by Arthur Vance every day at 3:15 p.m. Clockwork. Leo Vance enrolled in the extended after-school program, pickup at 5:30 p.m. The primary contact for Leo was my mother. My father hadn't even put his name on the form. He refused to be associated with him. I called the school registrar, and the woman on the other end sounded sympathetic. She told me Leo was doing fine academically, but he was quiet, extremely quiet. "Does anyone ever pick him up early?" I asked. "He's on the late stay schedule," she said. "His grandmother usually gets him around 5:30, sometimes closer to 6. Mason left at 3:15. Leo was left there for an extra 2 hours every single day. Then came Mason's birthday in November. I saw the photos on Clara's social media. A dozen kids, a bouncy castle in the yard, a cake shaped like a fighter jet. My parents were in the background, grinning behind a mountain of presents they'd bought him. Leo's birthday was in February. My mother sent me exactly 1 photo. Leo was sitting at the dining table with a cheap store-bought cake. No candles, no friends, just my mother looming behind him and a plastic tray with a slice of marble cake. I called her that night. I asked her why Leo's birthday was so different from the massive party they threw for Mason. I could feel a cold, heavy dread starting to settle in my chest. She told me Leo had been pulling back since December. He wouldn't play with other kids. "Our expenses have been high lately, Elena, and Leo never even asked for a party," my mother said. "He is 7. What 7-year-old turns down a party?" Besides, Mason lives here permanently. Leo is just transient. She used that word like it was a law of physics, not a weapon. But it cut deep anyway. I realized right then that in my parents' house, my son was a guest while Mason was the heir. I went to the comms terminal at 3 a.m. and wrote a petition for compassionate reassignment. 2 pages, single-spaced, nothing but facts. Naval regs allow for an early return if childcare arrangements fall apart. I laid out my concerns about my parents' behavior, included the school counselor's info, the pickup logs, and a scan of Leo's drawing. The next morning, Commander Thompson called me into his office. He pointed at the papers and asked, "Vance, is your boy safe?" "I don't know, sir," I admitted, "and that is the problem." He signed the petition that afternoon. Then I called Major Sarah Benson, a JAG officer I'd served with in San Diego. "Benson, I need legal advice. Off the record for now." "Talk to me." "My parents are Leo's guardians. I suspect bias, maybe even neglect. I need to know my options." She didn't hesitate. "Document everything. Photos, school records, timestamps. If this goes to court, you need a trail that starts before the disaster, not after." "Nothing has happened yet," I said. "Then stay ahead of the curve. Keep it that way." I spent the next 2 months building a dossier. Every call, every drawing, every message from my mother went into a folder on my phone labeled Family. I didn't tell my parents I was coming home early. I didn't tell Clara. I told no one but Benson and Commander Thompson. 60 days of waiting. Then, 3 weeks before my transfer, Mason told the lie that broke everything. I had trusted my parents with the most important person in my life, and for 2 years I'd ignored the signs that my son was becoming a ghost in his own family. Mason had been making up stories about Leo for weeks. I just didn't know the full extent of it until later. The first lie was small, a broken game controller. Mason smashed it against a mahogany table during a tantrum over a tournament. When my father stormed in, Mason pointed at Leo. He did it. Leo tried to defend himself, but Arthur told him to stop making excuses and sent him to the sunroom. The second lie was about brownies. My mother made a batch for Mason's school. Half the tray disappeared overnight. Mason told her Leo ate them after dinner. In reality, Mason had given them to a friend across the street. My mother didn't even ask Leo for his side. She just told him, "You need to learn some self-control." The third lie was worse. Mason told a teacher that Leo had bullied him at recess. They were separated for 2 weeks. Even when the counselor found out no one could back up Mason's story, the damage was done. Leo spent 2 weeks eating lunch alone. The pattern was always the same. Mason talked, the adults listened, Leo spoke, and they ignored him. My mother actually told Leo, "Don't be a whistleblower. No one likes a kid who makes up mean stories." Leo stopped telling anyone anything. He just drew. I learned most of this from Mrs. Higgins, the school counselor who had been seeing him once a week since October. He trusted her because she never messed with his drawings. She just sat and waited. "Your son rarely speaks," she told me later, "but his sketches show everything." Arthur's rule was absolute. Mason didn't lie, and anyone who said he did was a problem. My mother had a silver watch she treated like it was made of starlight. It had belonged to her father and his father before him. 3 generations of Vance men had carried it at their graduations and weddings. She kept it in a mahogany box on her dresser and only took it out on Sundays. One Sunday in March, my mother brought the box to the dinner table. She showed it to Mason. "This was your great-grandfather's," she said. "One day, when you're older, I'll give it to you." Mason's eyes went wide. He reached for it, and Margaret let him hold it. She watched him turn the silver over in his hands, smiling like she was watching a holy ritual. Leo, sitting across the table, asked softly, "Can I see it too?" My mother didn't even look at him. "Not right now, honey. You might drop it." Mason smirked. Leo put his hands in his lap. Clara, sitting next to Mason, leaned over and said just loud enough for Leo to hear, "You know how clumsy Leo is. Remember the figurine?" The figurine was a glass statue Mason had knocked off the mantel while wrestling. He told my parents Leo did it. They believed him. My mother spent the rest of that night lecturing Leo about being careful with other people's things. After dinner, Leo went back to the sunroom and drew. He didn't come out until it was time to get ready for bed. No one checked on him. No one asked what he was drawing. No one noticed he had gone silent again. Mrs. Higgins called me on a Friday afternoon. I was in the galley eating dinner when my phone buzzed with a California number. "Lieutenant Vance, this is Linda Higgins. I'm the counselor at Bayside Elementary. I work with Leo." I stepped outside. The air was thick and tasted like salt. "Is he okay?" "Physically, yes, but I wanted to talk about some patterns I've been seeing." He said Leo had stopped eating lunch with his friends. He sat at the edge of the cafeteria and just drew. He flinched whenever adults raised their voices. Then she said something that made me grip the railing so hard my knuckles turned white. He told me his grandfather says he isn't a true Vance. I closed my eyes. He said that? Those were his exact words. He told Leo that true Vances don't take things and they don't lie. My father had shouted those same words at me the night I told him I was joining the Navy. He told me true Vances stay with their legacy and that I was abandoning everything. Now he was saying it to my 7-year-old son. He was telling him he didn't belong. Higgins added, "I'm not required to file a report yet, but I wanted you to know." "Thank you. Can you email me your notes?" I hung up, sent the recording to Benson, and added 3 lines to my black ledger. My father hadn't learned a thing, and my son was learning all the wrong lessons. I called Clara the next day. I tried to make it a calm sister-to-sister talk about what was best for the kids. It lasted 5 minutes. "Is Leo doing okay at Mom and Dad's?" I asked. "His counselor says he's withdrawing." Clara exhaled one of those loud, dramatic sighs. "He's fine, Elena. He just needs to learn his place. Mason's been here longer. He knows how things work." Learn his place? I waited 3 seconds before I trusted myself to speak. "What does that mean, Clara?" "It means your son walks around that house like a guest instead of helping out. Mason helps Dad in the shed. Mason sets the table without being asked. Leo just stays in his room and draws." He's 7. Mason had 2 parents and a room with a nightlight at 7. Leo has a folding futon. Then Clara said the one thing I wasn't ready for. "I told Mom and Dad that maybe you should just let them adopt Leo. You're never there anyway. He needs stability, Elena. He needs a real family." My chest tightened, not from sadness, but from the effort to keep my voice steady. Adopt my son? "I'm just saying what everyone is thinking." I hung up without another word and unlocked my heavy tablet. I logged into the Naval Legal Portal and started drafting arguments for a judicial review of Leo's guardianship. My sister actually wanted my parents to adopt my boy. She said it like it was perfectly rational, like my motherhood was just a contract she thought had expired. I decided that night that when I went back, I'd be armed with documentation, not weapons. Exactly 3 weeks later, my transfer came through. I was going home. Commander Thompson handed me the papers in his office with a look that was half relief and half worry. "Vance, whatever's going on, fix it. Your boy needs you more than these engines do." I packed my duffel in 40 minutes, the black ledger, my tablet, a charger, and Leo's drawings in my chest pocket. Everything else was Navy property and stayed behind. My transport left Naples at 0500. 19 hours of turbulence and layovers later, I landed at San Diego International at 1300 Pacific Time. I rented a sedan using my military ID and drove to a Marriott 10 miles from my parents' house. I didn't call them. I didn't even drive past the house. I just lay on the bed, phone in hand, and called Benson. "I'm stateside. Got in 2 hours ago." "Good. Your petition to cancel the guardianship is ready. I can file it first thing Monday morning." "What happens then?" "Your parents lose their legal status. Custody returns to you immediately. If they refuse to hand him over, we go to family court. If something happens before Monday, we file an emergency motion. But Elena, let the system work. If you confront them now, they'll play the victim. Your father will call you unstable, your mother will cry, your sister will tell everyone you abandoned your kid and now you're attacking the people who stepped up." She was right. I knew she was right. Keep your arrival a secret, go to the school first, talk to the counselor, build your case while it is light out. I was back, but this time I wasn't coming home as their daughter. I was coming back as Leo's mother. There was a difference between those roles that my parents were about to learn the hard way. I drove to Bayside Elementary the next morning at 8:30. The air smelled like damp eucalyptus and exhaust. Mrs. Higgins was waiting for me with a heavy yellow folder. My son's name was written across the label in black marker. "Thank you for seeing me," I said. "I've been praying you'd show up," she replied. She opened the folder on her desk. 6 months of Leo's drawings, all in order. The first one from August showed Leo and Mason at a desk. Mason was huge and Leo was tiny, but they were both smiling. Normal enough. By October, the family was grouped together, but Leo was drawn at the very edge. He was still smiling, but the gap was there. In November, Leo's silhouette had shrunk while the others towered over him, and no one was holding his hand. In December, there was a drawing of my father's face, a massive red circle with an angry open jaw and a tiny figure at the bottom with blue teardrops. In January, Mason's birthday, a kid surrounded by decorations and gifts, while in the corner, a dark-haired boy sat alone with a slash marked across his chest. February was just 2 figures, a small boy and a tall woman in navy fatigues holding hands. The caption read, "My ultimate wish." I stared at that last drawing. Higgins whispered, "He drew you in your uniform." I know. He hadn't drawn his grandparents since December. He'd stopped including them entirely. I photographed every sketch, front and back, making sure the timestamps were clear. Then I took copies of Higgins' notes, 14 pages of assessments and psychological red flags. I sent the entire digital dossier to Major Benson. Then I sat in my rental car in the school parking lot and just cried. It was the kind of crying that comes from your soul, not your eyes. The kind where you grip the steering wheel until your knuckles turn white, because if you let go, you might never stop shaking. 10 months away, 10 months of 15-hour shifts and bad connections, all while being told he was adapting wonderfully. Those drawings said more than I ever could in a courtroom. Later that afternoon, I parked across from my parents' estate. At 15:45, the bus arrived. Mason got off first. Arthur walked out to the curb, messed up the boy's hair, grabbed his bag, and said something that made Mason laugh. They went inside together, leaving the front door wide open. 30 minutes later, the second bus pulled up. Leo stepped off slowly. He stood on the sidewalk for a second, adjusting his backpack straps, then walked up the path. The front door was closed now. He knocked softly. My 7-year-old son had to knock on the door of the house he'd lived in for a year. Margaret opened it. No hug, no smile. Clean your boots and get your stuff from the hallway. Leo went inside and the door shut. Through the bay window, I could see Mason lounging on the sofa with a bowl of snacks and the TV on. Leo disappeared upstairs within seconds. I sat there, forcing myself to breathe. Then I called Mrs. Henderson. Martha Henderson was 68 and lived next door before I was born. She taught me to bake when I was 9. Mrs. Henderson, it's Elena. I'm back. Elena! Oh, thank heaven, I'm so glad you called. I need to ask you something about Leo. It's urgent. She went quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "That little boy sits on the patio all by himself every night after dinner, Elena, while Mason plays in the yard with your father. He just sits there. Have you noticed anything?" My father screams at him like he's a stray dog, Elena. I can hear it through the walls. It's been getting worse since Thanksgiving. I wrote down every word she said, the dates, the times, the details. That night, I drove back to my parents' house. I told myself I was just going to watch, just wait in the driveway, maybe knock and grab Leo right then. I pulled up at 1915. The kitchen light was on and the TV was glowing in the den. Then I heard it. My father's voice, loud enough to cut through the oak door and the car windows. "I told you to clean up after dinner. Mason shouldn't have to tell you twice." Leo's voice was small and shaking. "I did clean up, grandfather." "Don't talk back to me. Go upstairs and stay there until you can behave yourself." There was a pause, the heavy groan of floorboards, and then silence. My hand was on the door handle. Every part of me wanted to run up those steps, kick that door in, and put Leo in the car without saying a word to my father. But Benson's voice was louder than my anger. "If you confront them now, they'll play the victim. You need the system on your side." I closed my eyes and let go of the handle. I backed out of the driveway and parked a few blocks away. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. I called Benson from the car. "File the petition tomorrow morning. I want this on the record. I'll have it in by 0900. Benson, what if something happens before then?" "Then you call 911 and call me right after." I spent that night in my hotel room staring at the ceiling. 10 hours until morning. 10 hours of bureaucracy. 10 hours of praying nothing went wrong. But I didn't have 10 hours, because that was the night the storm hit. I found out later exactly what happened inside that house, from Mason's later questioning, from Mrs. Henderson, and from my mother's sobbing confession. Around 20:30, my mother went upstairs to polish her watch for church the next morning. She opened the mahogany box on her dresser. It was empty. She checked the bedroom, the bathroom, the hallway. Then she ran downstairs and started tearing through cabinets in the kitchen and the den. "Arthur, my father's watch is gone. I can't find it anywhere." My father stood up. "What do you mean gone?" "It's not in the box. I've looked everywhere." Mason sat in the den watching the panic for nearly an hour and a half. Then he walked over to my father. "Granddad, I saw Leo put something in his backpack after school today. He was acting really weird about it." My father didn't ask any questions. He didn't ask what he saw or when it happened. He stormed into the sunroom, grabbed Leo's backpack off the floor, and ripped it open. The silver watch was inside. Mason had put it there earlier that day while Leo was upstairs doing homework. He'd taken it from the box, brought it to the sunroom, and dropped it into the front pocket of the bag. Then he'd zipped it up and gone back to the TV. He was 9 years old. He knew exactly what was going to happen. Arthur's face turned that shade of angry purple I'd only seen once before, the night I told him I was joining the Navy. "Leo, get down here right now!" The boy came down the stairs in his pajamas, barefoot on the wood, hands at his sides. He had no idea what was coming. The storm had been getting worse since dark. By 20:45, the sleet was coming down sideways. The wind rattled the shingles and scraped branches against the siding. It was one of those rare California winter storms that turns roads into ice and knocks out power lines. Inside, my father held the watch in one hand and Leo's backpack in the other. "You took this off your grandmother's dresser." "No, grandfather, I didn't." "It was in your bag, Leo." "I don't know how it got there. I really don't." My mother looked at Clara, then back at Leo. "Mason said he saw you. Your grandmother is heartbroken, and you're standing there lying to my face." Lightning flashed outside, and the kitchen window rattled. Leo backed up against the wooden banister and pulled his knees to his chest. He wasn't crying. He was just perfectly, terrifyingly still. It's the kind of stillness 7-year-olds get when the adults around them are completely out of control. Then Arthur said the words that would end up putting my son in a hospital ward. He towered over him by the stairs, with Clara on one side and Margaret on the other. "I've had enough of you." His voice filled the hallway. 2 seasons of this, the lying, the disrespect, the stealing." "I didn't steal anything, grandfather." "Mason doesn't lie." The words came out like a religious creed, final, absolute. "Mason doesn't lie. The sun rises in the east, ice is cold, and Mason doesn't lie." Margaret grabbed Arthur's arm. "Arthur, maybe we should—" He pulled away. "No, I'm done. He needs to learn what happens when he disrespects this family." Clara spoke up. "Father's right. This has gone on way too long." Mason, standing in the doorway, didn't say a word. He just leaned against the wall and bit his lip, an anxious habit a 9-year-old gets when the lie he told gets bigger than he meant it to be. Arthur reached down, grabbed Leo's bag, and threw it at his feet. "You want to act like you don't belong here? Fine." Leo looked at him, then past him at Margaret. Her eyes were watery, but her mouth was a hard line. She didn't move, she didn't reach for him, and she didn't stop it. Then Leo looked at Clara. She was busy checking her phone. My son looked at every single adult in that dark, cold hallway, and not one of them looked back. Arthur marched to the front door. The sound of the sleet filled the house the second he twisted the deadbolt.
A gale forced the door open wider than he intended, but he didn't try to close it. He just pointed. "Leave now. I have no use for a lying child." Those words left his mouth around 20:50 on a Friday night in December. The sleet was crashing so hard it bounced off the patio bricks, and the wind had already snapped a limb off the oak tree in the front yard. The temperature had dropped 15 degrees in the last 2 hours. Leo got up from the floor. He didn't argue and he didn't cry. He picked up his backpack, slid his shoulders through the straps, and walked out the door. He was wearing his pajamas, fleece pants with tiny rockets on them, and a long-sleeved shirt that said "Future Astronaut." No shoes, no coat, no phone. He stepped past the threshold and the sleet hit him instantly, plastering his hair to his forehead. My father slammed the door shut. Next door, Mrs. Henderson was washing her dinner dishes when she heard the bang. She looked through her kitchen window and saw a tiny silhouette wandering across the driveway in the middle of a blizzard, in pajamas, bare feet hitting the wet asphalt. She grabbed her phone. "Emergency. There's a child wandering alone outside in this storm. He just came out of the house next to mine." Inside my parents' house, my mother sat down at the kitchen island. She held the silver watch in both hands and stared at it. "Arthur, maybe we should let him back in. He'll get a fever." "He'll come back when he's ready to repent," he replied. Clara grabbed her coat. "I need to get home before the roads get dangerous. Mason, let's go." Mason didn't move at first. He stood in the archway staring at the closed front door for nearly 6 minutes. Then he followed his mother to the garage. No one went after Leo. No one checked the patio. No one looked out the window. My son walked 4 blocks in a snowstorm before he found a drainage pipe big enough to crawl into. He curled up inside, pulling his knees to his chest and using his backpack to cover his head until the blue and red lights found him. The deputy who found him was Martinez, responding to Mrs. Henderson's call. He'd driven the street 3 times before his flashlight caught the reflection of a zipper inside a concrete pipe 4 blocks from my parents' house. Leo was shaking so hard he couldn't speak. His feet were raw from running on the pavement, and his lips were blue. He held his backpack against his ribs like a shield. Martinez wrapped him in a thermal blanket and called for an ambulance. Responders were there in 10 minutes. Paramedics rushed him to Seaside Medical. Moderate frostbite, cuts on his shins and the heels of his feet, exhausted and a racing pulse. Not dead, but far from okay. In the hospital, an orderly searched Leo's bag for ID. In the front pocket, wedged in the same spot where Mason had hidden the silver watch, he found a laminated Navy card. Military Dependent Leo Vance, emergency contact Lieutenant Elena Vance. The orderly called the number around 2140. I was sitting on my Marriott mattress 10 miles away, staring at the ceiling and counting the minutes until Benson could file the paperwork, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. "This is Seaside Medical. We have your son, Leo Vance. He was brought in by deputies about 30 minutes ago." I was in my car before the orderly could even finish the details. I drove those 9 miles through the blizzard, parked diagonally in the emergency zone, and ran through the sliding doors. A nurse pointed me down the hall, room 7. Leo was in a hospital bed with an IV in his right arm and machines chirping. His hair was still damp, and his eyes were closed. I sat down next to him and took his hand. "I'm here. I'm not leaving." His eyes fluttered. "Mom?" "Yes, baby, I'm here." In his other hand, pressed against his skin, was a drawing. 2 crayon figures, one small and one in navy blue, holding hands.
30 minutes later, a woman in a navy blazer and glasses knocked softly on the door. She had credentials on a lanyard and a thick folder under her arm. "I'm Karen Miller, a clinical social worker. Do you have a minute?" I didn't let go of Leo's cold fingers. "Come in." She pulled a stool to the foot of the bed and sat down. She was calm and professional, the kind of calm that tells you she's seen this before and knows exactly how it works. "I am required by law to file a report with Child Protective Services. A 7-year-old was brought in tonight with severe frostbite and no legal guardian present at the time of the incident. I understand you are his mother, Elena Vance, lieutenant in the Navy." I showed her my military ID. She noted the details on her form. "Who was responsible for Leo tonight?" "My parents, Arthur and Margaret Vance. They are his temporary guardians under my naval family care plan." "Was he forced out of the house?" "I believe so. The neighbor who called 911 is Martha Henderson. She lives right next door. She can tell you what she saw." Karen wrote for a full minute without looking up. Then she said, "CPS will start an investigation within 24 hours. An agent will talk to the guardians and conduct interviews." "I understand." She looked at me over her glasses. "Is there anything else I should know?" "My son has lived with my parents for about a year. He's been withdrawing for months." After she left, I called Benson. "It's starting. CPS is involved. I'm at the hospital." I didn't make any accusations, I just answered the questions. The system was moving on its own now. About 70 minutes later, the door to room 7 opened again. Arthur walked in. He saw Leo first, a tiny figure in a hospital bed, an IV line in his arm, machines flashing green, and his pajamas replaced by a hospital gown that was way too big. His color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. Then he turned and saw me, sitting on the stool by the bed, still in my Navy fatigues with my name stitched over the pocket. His hands started to shake, both of them, knuckles quivering against his pants like he was trying to grab onto something that kept slipping away. "You shouldn't be here. When did you get here?" "I've been here an hour, Father." "You're supposed to be overseas. You're on duty." "I came back early." His jaw opened and closed, but no words came out. Margaret walked in behind him. She saw Leo and her hand went to her mouth. Then she saw me and started crying immediately, the kind of crying that always blamed someone else. "If you'd stayed here, none of this would have happened." I looked at her, matching her stare. "I trusted you to be there for him, Mother." Arthur tried to get his balance back. "The boy took your mother's watch. No, he didn't. Mason did." "Mason is 9, and we aren't having this argument in a hospital ward." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "I need to ask the visitors to keep their voices down." I stood up. I wasn't in a hurry and I wasn't angry, I just stood there. "Father, Mother, please leave. CPS will be talking to you tomorrow." Arthur's face changed color again. "CPS? You called CPS on your parents?" "The hospital did, because that's what happens when a 7-year-old ends up in the ER during a blizzard with no one looking after him." He opened his mouth to argue, but then closed it. They left without another word. The hospital went quiet after midnight. The lights dimmed to a steady hum, and I could hear shoes squeaking on the vinyl floors. I pulled my stool closer to Leo's bed and rested my arms on the metal rail. He woke up around 0100. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked at me like he wasn't sure I was real. "Am I in trouble?"
No, baby, you're never in trouble for telling the truth. He was quiet for a few minutes. Then he whispered in a voice so thin I could barely hear him. Mason put the watch in my bag. I saw him do it after school. He went into the sunroom when he thought I was upstairs, but I was on the steps. I saw. Why didn't you tell Granddad? Because Granddad never listens. He never listens when it's about Mason. I brushed his hair back. It was still damp. I know, and I'm making sure the right people listen this time. He closed his eyes, and his breathing steadied. His grip on my hand loosened, but didn't let go. I sat in the shadows, watching the IV drip. Then I sent a message to Benson. Subject: documentation packet, CPS investigation, Vance. I attached the counselor's notes, the drawings, Mrs. Henderson's number, and a summary of our talk, along with the hospital admission and my Navy paperwork. That night, sitting on that hard hospital stool, I finally put my trust in the right people. 72 hours later, my parents walked into a room they never expected to see. My boy was in a hospital bed because the people I trusted most kicked him out into a blizzard. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I let the system do exactly what it was designed to do. If you know what it feels like to stay calm while everything inside you is breaking, this part is for you. Keep watching. Agent Ramirez went to my parents' house Monday morning around 0915. She was a CPS investigator with 15 years on the job. Short hair, strictly professional, and a leather binder full of official forms. She interviewed Arthur and Margaret separately, standard procedure. My father's story: the boy was misbehaving. I told him to sit on the patio and think about what he'd done. He wandered off on his own. My mother's story: Arthur was angry. Leo stepped outside for some air. I thought he'd come right back in. Ramirez wrote down both statements, then pointed out the contradiction. He said it was a command. She said it was a choice. They couldn't both be right. Next, Ramirez interviewed Mrs. Henderson at her kitchen island. Martha had her own logs. She'd been writing things down since October, times, dates, and everything she heard through the walls. He opened the front door, Mrs. Henderson said. He threw the boy's bag at him. The kid was in pajamas, no shoes. He told him to get out. Then he slammed the door. I called 911 about 30 minutes later. Ramirez wrote that quote in capital letters and underlined it. That statement, cold, abrupt, and final, went into the official report. It wasn't hearsay or an accusation. It was eyewitness testimony from a 68-year-old widow with no reason to lie and a clear view through her window. My father had spent 62 years controlling the truth in his house. He didn't realize the walls were thinner than he thought. The specialist assigned to interview Mason was Dr. Brooks. She was young, calm, and trained in forensic questioning. Clara was allowed in the room, but she was told she couldn't coach or interrupt him. Mason sat at a small desk with a glass of lemonade and a stress ball. "Mason, can you tell me what happened with the watch?" Dr. Brooks asked. "I saw Leo put it in his bag," he said. "What time was that?" "After school." "Where were you when you saw him?" "In the kitchen." "Where was Leo?" "In the hallway." "Can you see the hallway from the kitchen?" Mason hesitated. "I mean, I was in the hallway too. Were you in the kitchen or the hallway?" He squeezed the stress ball. "The den. I saw him from the den." 3 locations in 30 minutes. Brooks didn't push it. She just said, "Mason,
Sometimes kids feel pressure to say things because they're scared or because someone told them to. It's okay to tell the truth here. Nothing bad will happen to you. Mason looked at his mother. Clara's face was like stone. I put it in his bag. Clara's voice cut in instantly. He's confused. He doesn't know what he's saying. Brooks raised a hand. Ma'am, please let Mason finish without any more interruptions.
Mason wouldn't look at her. The room went dead silent. Ramirez interviewed Clara in a separate room. By then, she had Mason's confession, Mrs. Henderson's testimony, and the school counselor's records. Mrs. Vance, did you tell your son to put the watch in Leo's bag? Clara's jaw tightened. That's ridiculous. Mason is 9. He makes things up all the time. Your son said you told him Leo needs to learn his place. He said you promised that if Leo got in trouble, your father would send him away. You're going to believe a child over me? Ramirez put her pen down and looked at Clara without blinking. Ma'am, I believed a child's story when it landed a 7-year-old in the hospital. So yes, I take children's statements very seriously. Clara pushed her chair back. I'm calling my lawyer. That's your right. This investigation will move forward regardless. Ramirez placed the silver watch on the desk in a clear evidence bag. It had been taken from Leo's bag at the hospital. This watch was hidden in a 7-year-old boy's bag by a 9-year-old who was told to do it by his mother. The result was a child being kicked out of his home in a blizzard without shoes or a coat. He spent 4 hours alone in a drainage pipe. Clara looked at the watch. The polished metal reflected the lights. It looked much smaller now that it did on my mother's dresser. She didn't say another word. She grabbed her phone and walked out. The hearing happened at the CPS district headquarters on a cloudy Thursday. There was a stained mahogany table, harsh lights, and a recording machine between us. On one side were my parents. My father wore a stiff collar he'd pressed himself. My mother wore the beige sweater she used for church. Their lawyer, Mr. Mitchell, sat between them holding a silver pen. On the other side were me and Major Benson in her fatigues with my evidence and a yellow binder. At the head of the table was Agent Ramirez. Clara was missing. She'd refused to show up after Mason's interview. Ramirez started by laying out the facts, the contradictions between Arthur and Margaret, Mason's confession, Mrs. Henderson's testimony, 6 months of school records, and the hospital documents. My father tried to interrupt twice. Both times, Mitchell put a hand on his arm. The third time, my father couldn't help himself. This is a family matter. You're turning a simple discipline issue into a nightmare. Ramirez cut him off. Mr. Vance, a 7-year-old boy was treated for severe frostbite. This is a child protection crisis. My mother started crying softly, quiet tears that ran down the lines of her face. We love Leo. We just made a mistake. One terrible mistake. I looked at her across the table, my voice steady. You told me that if I'd been here, none of this would have happened. But I trusted you to be here for him. That was my only mistake, and I promise you I will never make it again. Benson opened my binder. The temporary guardianship cancellation was processed. The petition for full custody was submitted. We had the records for the $1,500 they'd taken every month. Everything was on the table. My father looked at the pile of papers. You're going to throw your family away over this? You threw my son out in a blizzard, Father. I'm building him a fortress. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Ramirez gave the preliminary findings at the end of the meeting, a verified report of child neglect against Arthur and Margaret Vance. The order: no unsupervised contact with Leo until a full review, 2 hours, twice a month. Benson confirmed it. The guardianship was dissolved. Leo's custody was back with me. The final order would be signed by a judge within 30 days. Arthur stood up, his chair scraping the floor. His hands were shaking again, that same vibration in his knuckles. Elena, he's my grandson. He is, and that's exactly why this has to happen. My mother reached across the table toward my sleeve. Her fingers brushed my uniform. I pulled my hand back slowly. No hurry, no anger. Just a boundary. Mother, I love you, but loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt your boy. She pulled her hand back and pressed it against her mouth. Mitchell stood up and gathered his files. He looked at my parents like a man who knew his clients had no defense. He shook hands with Ramirez and Benson and led Arthur and Margaret to the door. My father paused in the doorway. He turned back and opened his mouth, then looked at the papers on the table, the cancellation, the testimonies, the charts, and closed it. He left without a word. Margaret followed him out, and the door clicked shut. I walked out of the office into a long hallway that smelled like bleach and old coffee. Leo was waiting in the lobby. Benson's assistant, a young corporal named Davis, had been reading him a book from the magazine rack, something about a cat who lost his collar. Leo looked up the second he heard my boots. He slid off the vinyl chair and ran to me, his arms wrapping tight around my waist. He pressed his face against my uniform. "Are we going home now?" "Yes, baby, we're going home for good." He stepped back and looked up at me. "Our house?" "Our house." I took his hand. His heavy backpack hung off one shoulder, and I could see the frayed edge of the Navy ID card still tucked in the front pocket. The same card I'd put there the night before I left. I'd put that card on him because I thought my parents would keep him safe. But when the family failed and the blizzard hit, that little piece of plastic with my name on it was what brought him back to me. Not my parents, not my sister. A simple ID card and an orderly who called the number on the back. We walked out to the parking lot together. The afternoon sun was bright, the first clear day in a miserable week. I didn't look back once. I knew our future was waiting for us, far beyond those walls, filled with peace. 90 days after we left, Leo and I were living on the base in San Diego. A small apartment, 2 bedrooms. His room had the ocean blue curtains he picked out himself, and a desk where he drew every night after dinner. I'd been moved to an administrative role, managing equipment, local shore duty only, no deployments for at least a year. My CO authorized it without a second thought. The family court permanently finalized the custody order in early spring. I have full physical and legal custody. My parents are allowed monitored visits for 2 hours every other weekend at an official center 15 miles away from their estate. A caseworker is present for every session. The first visit happened in late June. My father brought Leo a big drawing kit with dinosaurs and rockets. He put it on the metal desk between them and sat down in a cheap vinyl chair. He didn't know what to say. Leo didn't have many words either. They drew together in silence for 45 minutes. My father asked him about his new school. Leo told him about his science project. My father never raised his voice. He didn't talk about Mason or Clara or the watch or the storm. When the 2 hours were up, he stood up and said, "I'll see you in 2 weeks, Leo." "Okay, grandfather," Leo said. I watched him walk out to the parking lot and sit in his car for 15 minutes before he finally drove home. I know because the caseworker told me. Clara hasn't contacted me once since the hearing. Her husband, Richard, came back from the oil rigs and demanded to know the truth. They put Mason in therapy as part of the court order. Mason sent Leo a note in August. "I'm sorry I lied about the watch. I hope you aren't mad." Leo asked if he had to write back. I told him it was up to him. He replied 4 days later, "It's okay. I hope you're doing well." My mother calls every Sunday. The talks are short. "How is Leo?" "He's doing great, Mother." "Can I send him presents?" "You can send them to the house." "Elena, The schedule is set, Mother. We'll see you Saturday." My father's hands still shake when he sees Leo at the center. I'm not sure if it's regret or fear or something he doesn't have a name for yet, but he's there every other weekend. He never raises his voice. He never mentions lying children, not once. I used to think protecting my son meant making sure he had a roof and food and family nearby. I was wrong. Protecting him meant making sure the people around him deserved to be there. And when they didn't, it meant having the courage to be the parent who said enough. Not with a scream or revenge, but with the truth, a pile of documents, and a mother who finally came home. That's my story. One blizzard, one lie, and a mother who got home just in time. If this showed you that protecting your child isn't overreacting, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for being here. Leave a comment, hit follow, and I'll see you next time.